agenda. So I'll ask Secretary to go ahead and call the roll.
Present.
Alderman Lakua. Alderman Maruca.
Okay, first item on the agenda is public comment on items not on the agenda. The Board of Aldermen welcomes comments from citizens on issues and items of concern not on the agenda. Those wishing to speak must sign in before the meeting begins and observe a 5-minute time limit when addressing the board. Speakers will have one opportunity to speak during this time. Inquiries about matters not listed on the agenda will either be directed to staff or placed on a future agenda for Alderman's consideration. No discussion or final action will be taken by the Board of Aldermen during the public comment period of the meeting. With that, we do have a couple of people wishing to speak on items not on the agenda. The first person is Nicole Siegel. So Nicole, if you can come up. Hello. Right up here.
I was just kind of thrown into this, but here I go. Okay, so I believe our concern is we live in Eagle Ranch development right by the new high school, and there is talk of a new development right behind that is going to want to connect or go behind the high school, and I think it's called Southern Oaks. Yes. Our concerns are we're not discouraging. We love that, you know, the town is growing, you know, and everything like that, the perks of that. We are concerned that the 89 houses that are in our little development already are going to be with the high school. The bus route is going to be cutting through our neighborhood into a gate. And then we're also concerned that they want to add a road connecting RE Street into the new development, which is going to also add more traffic to us, which, again, we don't discourage improvements and expansions, but we don't have sidewalks in our development. We don't have speed bumps in our development, and we're concerned about the traffic and the increase and the safety of everyone in the development. And I don't believe that we were told that when we were purchasing our houses, that we knew there was going to be a development, but we were not told that the development would connect, because we always thought that it was a common area on our map that we were told. And like I say, I mean, I guess I don't, stoplight, plus the stoplight, yes, with the stoplight being put there on 2484 and 1670, right there is the entrance also to Eagle Ranch, which I'm not gonna lie here because I don't know if I'm on oath or not, but people are gonna take, you know, a different route to avoid the street light if they're in a rush. So they're gonna take Salado Heights ride and then go through the development, go down past Erie onto the new expansion to hit Williams Road. So, you know, and believe me, I've done it. I've cut through from Williams Road to Scott and Bay, you know, and kind of jumped over there. I know, you know, but that's where I'm concerned, and I would like that to be addressed in future meeting or something like that. I'm not quite sure.
Anything else?
Anything else? No, that's it. Okay.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Jim Boynton.
Jim Boynton, 3565 FM 2843 Salado. I was going to speak on a couple of things this morning in this workshop, or this evening rather. One of the things that was very concerning to me the other day has happened to me in the past, it's happened to others. A couple were going to put in a business, happens to be something to do with guns, I don't know what it is. The bottom line is they were given the green light in January, and then last week apparently either got a yellow light or a stop light or something. I've been in this town for quite a long time, and I've dealt, unfortunately, with changing city folks who there'll be one crew in and say, yeah, you can do that. The next crew said, no, you can't. The unfortunate thing is people who are trying to put a business in or anything like that, I don't have an opposition to any business like that at all myself, but it's also very tough for the person doing it to be drug out month after month after month. I had that happen when I built houses here. It's pretty uncomfortable. It's also a way that people in town make you spend money that you shouldn't have to be spending. So I just would like your consideration on that. Please think carefully if we're being fair to these folks. The next thing I was going to do, I didn't get called on at the mayor's forum when they had all the city managers forum. And so I was going to ask this question, and so it's going to be a question that our new city manager can hear, even though he's already hired. I wonder how our city manager is going to protect our city. Being in a meeting, the former mayor and the former city manager were told that the condos next over there on Bain Street were flooding. Before they gave them a C of O, myself, Chet Sutton, county commissioner all met, and the mayor was informed and passed it to the city manager that those places had flooded. And so the consensus right then was no more C of Os. Now they've all got C of Os, they're occupied. And so I've been trying to encourage people on our board. The couple of you guys just got here. The ones that have been on the board have probably heard it more than they want to hear it from me. But I think it's pretty poor if we let people move in there knowing that they were flooding before they got a C of O. And we've known that. And I've tried passing it along. Chet Sutton's tried passing it along. How are we going to defend ourselves as a city if somebody buys insurance, their house floods, and the insurance company says, hey, wait a minute. These things were flooding before they were finished. The city okayed it. How can our city manager begin to defend us as a city if that's happened? And it has. And it's going to affect people coming to town not knowing anything about it. They could change. Think about this. If you were buying a house and it had flooded, don't you have a right to know that? Should we be hiding that fact, or should we be talking about it, trying to figure out what to do? I've spoken to people behind the scenes, and to this point, we haven't made much headway. So if we need to speak about it publicly every other week, we can do it. It's not a threat. It's one of those things that's coming to roost. It is. Something's going to go wrong, and there's documentation. I've had behind the door, closed door meetings or meetings with a couple of council members, the mayor. People know that it's happened. There's no doubt about it. how do we expect our new city manager to walk off and defend this when we knew it before they got a C of O? Thank you.
That's the last, request. And I don't think we move to the next item, B, which are items that are on the agenda tonight. The Board of Aldermen welcome comments from citizens on issues and items on the agenda. Those wishing to speak, let's sign in before the meeting begins and serve as time limit for addressing the board. Speakers will have one opportunity to speak for agenda items. During this time, public comments on the agenda items will only be received during this portion of the meeting. No discussion or final action will be taken by the Board of Aldermen during the public comment period of the meeting. With that, we will call Linda Reynolds up to speak on her item.
Is it on or we don't do it? Hello. Anyway, Linda Reynolds, 1110 Mill Creek Drive. I wanted to speak about the MRB review that you'll be discussing and voting on. I wanted to check, knowing very little about a sewer system, obviously. I was an English teacher, so I do know the east side of Main Street has grinder pumps. It's not gravity. I don't know whether that's part of the review or not, but the whole east side of Main Street is not gravity. So I know there's cut across under the highway, but I want to make sure they get counted for their usage when you do the review. Also, it seems like the review ought to include an estimation of whether the grinder pumps are doing a good job. Are they falling apart? They were given to the businesses. My assumption is that we've given so much to developers that we might also help people in town who have grinder pumps when the time comes to replace those. And I know some of you actually have businesses on that side, so it's going to be in your best interest to consider that, I think, whether or not we assist those people with their grinder pumps and whether they're counted for the MRB. I didn't see it recognized on the agreement. Also, I'm not sure that you've recognized in that agreement the two hotels at the north end of the village, whether they are not on our sewer system now, but I understand we have a development agreement with them, so when they decide to pay to connect, they will be allowed to connect, so that's got to be a part of a future assessment, I assume. Too, and in between those two hotels, I've heard, we all have heard, that at some point a business, I know the manager of the main hotel, the first hotel, is talking with people about some kind of a business between them, and that would be a business that would also be on our sewer system. Also, you know, we have an extra elementary building now, which will house children and adults, and apparently a whole new wing on it. So there's going to be some extra usage with an extra building, and I'm not sure if that's part of the arrangement. Also, we have to face the fact that many people will come to a football stadium and use the bathrooms. Hopefully that's going to be a part of the assessment. The other thing is, I'm not sure if you're assessing the D.R. Horton 33,000 square feet. That's an office building. I don't think anybody's ever said how many people will be there, but I'm assuming there will be many people and they will be flushing toilets, inevitably. And the other thing is, we have the wildfire commercial, and I can't remember if it's 200 or 300 housing units that is yet to be developed, but we owe them sewer. Whatever they build there, how many times they flush, we owe them sewer, or we end up having to pump and haul, which is a horrendous. Again, we're getting a bigger and bigger village with haves and have-nots. I happen to have a septic system at my house, as many people in Mill Creek do, and when it falls apart, I will owe a lot of money to straighten it out. But we have the haves and the have-nots, and I'm hoping that the haves all get counted up when you assess how much more sewage we can handle dealing with and paying for many, many years. Thank you.
Make one quick comment. It's correct. Nicole, who spoke, her address, she got the United States address. I have on here is 11241 Golden Beacon Avenue. All right, so now we will move on to discuss discussion of the consent agenda, Board of Aldermen meeting. So I will ask if there is any items on the consent agenda that anyone would like to pull out. Like this, here's the just to get items. That's the board called it. Second meeting is 28. We had a first part monthly report. Different bills, monthly report. We had the petition for the release of the Salado Airport. Spot 001, spot 001. And then we had a garden petition for the Salado located the last year.
Yes, Mayor. I'd like to, if I may, I'd like to request that we remove item A2 and A3 from the consent agenda, which is the A3 and 4, excuse me. Like to hear the police department monthly report and also the Convention and Visitors Bureau report from their respective authorities.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, so we will pull out item A3. And all the other items. We'll move to item B. Discussion regarding the RFP for selection and audit firm to provide annual audit. Related to Salado. So the administrator, who's going to take this topic?
I will be covering this. The city released an RFQ for audit services. It was published with the set deadline. We received only one response into that. It came from Phil S. Vaughn, CPA, or Armstrong, who works for Armstrong, Vaughn and Associates. His background, his submittal has been reviewed by city staff, including Missy Fine, Nelson, if he was here, given village administrator as well as Christy Spiegel and they, as well as myself, and we are recommending acceptance and award of the services to them. Both we feel all three of us feel they are very qualified. Also, as further background, they they were previously the city's auditing firm up until this past year. The city used a different, used a different firm in the past for last fiscal year, but prior to that, this is the firm that the city used. Christie is very familiar with them and, from their previous work, so they did a very good job. None.
I don't understand why we can only get one problem that we will continue to deal with, not placing blame on the other. But I like to say that other things about the standpoint that we have to do that, I am perplexed why everyone
I can give my, I don't know factually why, but I can give my opinion on, from my previous experience in the city I was previously working for. We went out for RFP for auditing services, it was 2 years ago, to make, 2 to 3 years ago. And we had a low response rate at that time as well, given it was in South Texas, not Central Texas. But I think the same reasoning applies is there's a lower number of CPAs that's contributing to this fact of this type of work. We experienced that until there's a reduced number of CPA firms that do public auditing. And then secondly, the firms that are out there, other auditing firms, they public auditing pays less than auditing the private sector. And there's a demand in the private sector, greater demand for CPAs, so there's probably more money to be made in the private sector. And so those two factors, what we experienced, are contributed to the low turnout. I would make the assumption that applies here as well. In regards to the previous financial issues the city with you all and city of to rectify this auditing firm to give guidance on on that issue and how to deal with that issue. They were actually involved in help guide the city. So they did not compete with the problem. They actually helped talk specifically with the city about that, and she said they actually helped guide the city through that process. Again, I wasn't here at the time. From what I understand from talking to Mr. Nelson, that was a one-time off because last year the city did not have an auditing firm, and so I believe our finance person knew them and asked them to, if they would be interested, or asked them to do the city's audit, and they agreed to do it for 1 year. So this is why the city went back out.
go back and clarify. You were comfortable in county the village auditor made the report and the village president
So the auditor doesn't give guidance on where dollars are placed. They're reviewing after the fact to make sure the dollars are handled correctly. And they noted that, yes, that the revenue that had come into the city, it was in a restricted, it had been not encumbered, I'm drawing a blank on this, but it wasn't a restricted fund, but they were deposited into the general fund, but they were immediately restricted on how those dollars can be used, so they could not, they were commingled into the general fund, but they were all, at the same time, they were restricted on how they can be used, so they could not be used for general operation. So the auditor didn't give guidance on setting that up. They reviewed it after the auditing, and they said, yes, that was correct. They agreed with the methodology of that.
Okay, that's a little better. So I don't want to belabor the point on it, and I know you're brand new, but I think it's important for the village community as a whole to know that if we're about to go back and put Phil Vaughn in the auditor position for this coming year, that the work that they did prior to this was professional in accordance with proper accounting rules, and they noted that, and they noted that you can put restricted funds in a general operating account, but you're not supposed to use them except for restricted matters. Correct? Right. But it can go in any account you want, but it's still designated restricted funds.
That's correct.
Okay. And that was noted.
Yeah.
And there was an account set up at that point in time specifically for that in the liability side of the balance sheet to note that. That's correct?
I don't know so much that there was an account set up, but those funds were deposited into the general fund and then immediately restricted as a liability, noted as a liability, because they had to be renewed, or the village knew those were going to have to be refunded at some point or used to pay for public improvement district. No way of not saying that. So they were never available for any other purpose except for that, either being refunded or used for those improvements in that development.
And there was a verbiage to that effect in the annual auditing report.
I can't speak to that because
You don't know.
I didn't go back and look at the audit for that.
Okay. Well, it was addressed. I just wanted to see if you had the opportunity to look at it yet. I had, and I understand that.
Yeah, and I did talk to Mr. Nelson as well as Christie, and they both said that, yes, the auditor had noted that how those dollars were handled with those restrictions was appropriate.
And I can say, as a matter of fact, I went back and looked at the balance sheets at that point in time. It was noted on the liability side of the balance sheet as well when the funds came in promptly. Right? Okay. So I just wanted to clear that up before there was any real serious discussion about going back to the same auditor again after the cloud that was left at that point in time. So that's the purpose of my questioning, and to make sure people understood to the effect we can that going back to him, we see and believe that the auditor did nothing wrong and missed nothing with respect to his audit report to the village. Okay. I have no further questions. Thank you. Your intercom.
Sorry. Okay, can you hear me now? Okay.
How about this?
Can you hear me?
Yes. All right.
Sorry, I'm new at this. No, I was just going to comment, just from a technical standpoint, as you're having this discussion, that once there was a request that the funds be restricted, then there had to be a counter account set up on the balance sheet, or that money would have just flown right to the bottom line. So obviously that didn't happen, but that was just an important technical thing to call out. Okay, Neil, you had a...
Well, I think Alderman Lassiter covered a lot. Can you guys hear me? Okay. I think what I want out of this is clearly that did not work. So however it was accounted for and how it took place, the funds were spent that should have not been spent on things so it's like, I feel like right now those funds were put into a total separate account that we can't touch. It's totally separate from the general fund. At least that's where now that we set it up that way. My understanding is that those funds were moved into a total separate account. But going forward, I don't ever want this to happen again. We should learn from this previous misallocation or funding of how things were spent, because clearly we didn't have the right controls in place to make sure that funds weren't spent inappropriately. Because if those were truly restricted, they shouldn't have been sent on repaving Center Circle.
So we're talking about the $945,000 thereabouts. Those funds were not used for paving any public infrastructure projects. They were when they were deposited into the general fund, which in my opinion they should not have been deposited
Correct.
at that point. But they were, and that doesn't make it wrong. It's just from accounting principles, that's not the best place. It should have been put in a restricted
Separate account.
A separate account. And that's, to your point, that's where they are now. They have been moved to a budget amendment. But when those dollars, can you hear me?
Is your green light on?
Yeah. The green light's on. Can you hear me now? Is that better? Okay. So when that 945,000 plus check was deposited into the general fund, and I'm repeating what I've been told and from our finance person, that immediately when they're upon the deposit, they were also identified as a liability because those funds had a different purpose. So simultaneously, that same fiscal year, though, to your point on the other public improvements, those dollars that paid for those public improvements, she said, came from the cash reserves, and that started driving down the unallocated cash balance and the cash reserves. That's what's led to some of the confusion on public improvements. According to what I've learned, it did not come out of $145,000, which were already identified as a liability. It couldn't be spent on that. Those dollars, extra dollars that were not budgeted, came in from the city's reserve fund to pay for those, and I don't know all you guys know better than I on what those capital improvements were that year.
I agree, but what I saw is that we actually went negative, so we had at some point to touch those funds.
From what I've learned, it didn't touch those funds because they were on liability, so they couldn't have been touched. Now, it could have still gone negative for that reason, but the other dollars were used.
Okay. Well, my only thing is that going forward, I just want to make sure accounting, whether it was audited or was appropriately, it doesn't sound like this may be a different discussion topic, but if something's reserved, it needs to be in a separate account.
And that will happen, yes. And that, to your point, the village has learned from that, and that's the process moving forward.
Okay. No other question.
I'll see if I can correctly operate this. Can you hear me in the back? Okay. So I recognize that Salado, first of all, there's a lot more accounting and auditing skills to the left of me and the right of me than my own base, but I've got some questions nonetheless. Salado government seems to be a bit under a microscope in terms of people questioning many things about us, and seems to be a delight basically exposing any missteps publicly whenever we make them. With that in mind, I wasn't sure what confidence we have in AVA in terms of capability, reputation. I saw that they included a list of, 32 different small cities that they work with, which is good. But do we have we received strong references from a number of those? And do we know if AVA has a clean nose in terms of no material complaints or litigation underway against them?
I do not know that answer. I don't know that answer. I'd have to go back and check with Christie on that.
Okay.
Nelson, because they're the ones that process or.
I'd just like to make sure that if we select somebody that we don't walk ourselves into a trap and find out the very next day that there's 3 or 4 folks that are unhappy with them and have either material complaints or litigation underway. That's not the way we need to step forward. So it's probably a non-issue. Just want to make sure we do the check. No, sir.
All right, thank you. I do have a few comments on this topic as well. One, I just want to repeat. It's a little disappointing to only get one bid. John, that's not necessarily anything you can specifically do to. I do think it's a reflection that the public accounting market is specialized relative to the private accounting market, and obviously the large accounting firms focus on the private market because that's more lucrative. So you end up with smaller auditing firms that will do the public accounting space. And again, it's unfortunate we only have one bidding on this, and it's one that we had worked with in the past. I would comment that I believe that they appear to have the experience based on what was provided on their list of clients. They do a lot of cities. I would just encourage, John, that we make sure that we go back, given our experience around the time that we had some issues, not that they were necessarily Armstrong's problem, but I would encourage us to make sure that we get some good reference checks and that we do the due diligence on that before we approve moving forward with them. And then maybe going forward, we might want to, I think, expand our efforts to understand who else is available in the public accounting market, that we can in the future try to build a relationship to try to get additional bids so that we have choice. That's my biggest concern, is that we have some choice.
Absolutely. And just to clarify, Christie and or Mr. Nelson may have already checked references. I just don't know that answer, but I will find that out. And if we haven't, then we will definitely do that.
One class.
Yes.
What's the sense of urgency on this? Is it can we keep the current provider we have longer, or is it totally out of the contract?
The current provider is done for the year, so they've provided the services, auditing services for last fiscal year. So we have time right now to table this and let me come bring back more information on the references. I'll have to check if you want to reject this and direct staff to release a new RFP. We'll have to check to see if we have the available timeline to do that. The auditing, and I say that from, it's not that we do auditing, these services will occur in the calendar year, they won't. They'll occur next spring, need to be done by the end of March.
Yep. And
in order for that to happen, we need to see this fall coming up soon so they can get it scheduled. And that becomes the push right now. So, but to delay it 2 weeks, I know that's not a problem to do that.
Okay.
Any other final comments up here? Okay. Thank you for that. We'll move on to the next item. Item C, discussion regarding the task order from MRB concerning wastewater capacity calculations. I'll turn to Alderman Sandor first and see if you have any comments.
I do. Can we have Solomon come up now, please? So, I think I understand the task order, because I certainly am responsible for making sure that we're talking about it as soon as tonight. My question for you tonight is that in a recent conversation, as recent as yesterday, the Collins family. I have a microphone on. It's exactly where it is every single time I do this. I don't think it's me is my point. Yeah. How about now? Now? Yeah? Okay. Development and Collins family. They have, obviously, a sewer system over there. Generally speaking, they're not interested. My question is, would it be possible this task order perhaps utilizing that one day if the owner?
Yes. I don't know if this is on either. Yes, if y'all want to add to the task order, maybe just tell us what you want to add to the scope, and we're happy to do that for you guys.
And how long would it take to arrive at what that change might cost the village?
So right now, I would think I could get that probably within a couple weeks. Our wastewater engineer that put this together is currently on leave. She had surgery, and so, but she thinks she'll be back released next Thursday, and so I would think that she could get that within a week of getting back to add that in. It's just getting her to do the, see what it would take to add that.
Okay, and then on the original task order and the amount being proposed right now, I feel like with MRB's relationship for so long with the Village of Salado, is there any existing I don't think you put that task order together, is that correct? Sorry, I'm going to jump
a wastewater staff member, MRB did, yes.
Right, okay,
yes.
And so my question is it possible that that MRB staff member who put the task order together may not be privy to information that perhaps you would be in regard to known data? In other words, can we find a way to value engineer this proposal and it still be an attractive project for MRB? I don't know how to word that differently. I know that you know a lot about what we have going on here, and I understand that sometimes you have to delegate down in the organization. That makes perfect sense to me. But depending upon who that was delegated to and what information they were using, they may have just been using general parameters set by MRB, for example, to arrive at a price point.
So no, she actually was involved in, both her and Armin were both involved in all of the interaction between the Village of Salado and sanitary sewer. So they are well aware of what the village has.
Okay.
From a price point standpoint, we are not trying to get a price that doesn't make sense. We evaluate what hours it takes to do that, and that's where we come with the price.
Okay.
So I don't think I can go back and ask her, is there anything you can take out? But generally, project managers are not trying to put something extra in, and we usually get in trouble for the opposite, where our management says, well, you didn't think about this or you didn't think about that. So I know she has developed it from a standpoint of what does she think it's the time that it's going to actually take to do each of the pieces.
Okay, that's fair. And so I think my last question is, I don't think I read, maybe it is in the task order, but I think maybe Mr. Nelson mentioned to me that this could take 4 to 6 months to get back. And
So-
that I do absolutely have some concern with. I think that, given the statements you just made, I would want to understand better why we need half a year to figure this out.
So what we have, because I went and got, what is your time frame? And so the initial information gathering on like things like, okay, it's this development, plus we think that this is going to come in certain areas, there's that. And then your calculations, we don't have information on the exact sizing of the lift stations and generators. So that process itself is estimated approximately a month to get that information. And then the calculations that we have to run to project future developments, their connections, and the amount that would contribute to the capacity is about a month. And then writing the draft report, that's where we're looking at about 3 months. So a draft report within 3 months. The other part of that is, once we turn in the draft report and are waiting for comments, addressing those comments, that's an unknown time frame for us. Depends on sometimes what y'all's schedule is on your alderman meetings. So that can add a month, 2 months, whatever it is, to get a response to actually finalize the report.
Can the front side of understanding that MRB does not control the back end of that time, can the front side of that time be expedited for any reason? I feel like, when you don't know what you don't know, essentially this is a math problem.
Right.
Am I right?
Sure.
And I think we could get the data that you're missing, I would hope, from our sewer people, Jacob? And I don't think that would take us very long to do. So if we could expedite getting you, if you gave us a small list of things that you're going to need to conclude this math problem, I think we could be responsible to expedite that back to your office, and then maybe on our end work with you to help pinch that some.
Sure, yes.
And the reason being, if it's not obvious, and it probably is to you, but for others, is because we have, like it or not, opportunity is how I will describe it loosely right now, to look at development agreements. There are a lot of people wanting to develop Salado land right now, lots and lots of people. I think to some degree timing is of the essence on making sure that if there is something attractive and beneficial and that maths well for Salado, that we, are responsible to expedite what we can on our side to try to do that business if the business makes sense. Otherwise, certain developers might pass on an opportunity to develop in Salado, but that only means that another developer will be standing right behind them to come in and in one case I could think of, do higher density and an inferior building product to maybe perhaps another developer. So those are my concerns, and I don't think I have anything else. So thank you.
No, not at this, not tonight. I think Alan asked some good questions. Alderman Sandor asked some good questions in trying to think this through. And yeah, I'm like him. I wish I didn't have to wait that long, but if we push too hard, we may not get good answers, and I don't want that either. But yeah, there's a tremendous demand for sewer, and we've got a lot to figure out, Mayor, about where we can say yes and where we need to say no, and that's got to be one of our big topics here the rest of this year to figure out. So I definitely want to go forward with this in some capacity. I mean, we have to if we're going to be prudent about our growth. So that's all I can offer at this point. And I think this is something that it is a big item for us going forward the next 6 months.
Yeah, I just want to add to for really for the public is when you have developers who are wanting to develop immediately adjacent to your city and who are willing to annex to do so, you have to be responsible as a city, or in this case a village, to at least run the math problem with them to make sure that that business is mutually beneficial. So our job is to make sure that it's beneficial for Salado. I want to be very clear. If a developer decides not to develop in our village, that does not mean they're not going to develop. They most certainly are going to develop, or they're going to convey the property probably to another developer. If it's immediately against the village proper, I can just nearly promise you that it will convey to another developer, because there are very few, if any, 100 to 300 acre parcels of land immediately adjacent to the village proper that are owned by cattlemen or women. They are mostly held by developers today. I've been saying this over and over again, seeing a lot of chatter on the internet that makes zero sense at all. You have to run a math problem and make sure that you're not going to allow a developer to put a county development in, granted with a little bit smaller amount of lots and homes, and perhaps they do make less money. That's none of our business. But what is our business, and what I think should be the taxpayers' business, is the simple idea that a county development right on the edge of the village proper means that you're going to have people impacting your infrastructure and your roads, and they're never going to pay you a penny to do it. And I think that's a point that no one's talking about on the internet, on the day-to-day chatter, which is very misleading, to be quite frank. So I want to make that clear. Like that is the concern that the board has in trying to do business for the village. It's not just a function of whether or not we want to do business with a developer. It's like, does this make financial sense for the village? And I don't think the village can continue to grow with county developments right on the edge of town that never pay us a penny to utilize our roads and infrastructure when we already have stresses in the financial department and always have. If we ever want to get better there, we have to pay attention to these math problems, and we have to be diligent to do so. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you for those comments. Okay, Alderman Dunch.
No, I mean, most of it,
Can you guys hear me? All right. So no, I only got one. Actually, I don't have any questions. I just have a question for you. What do you need from us? Like, if to be
Execute it and let us go. Execute the agreement and we'll get started.
Okay. So like, Linda, I think Reynolds brought up some points, making sure, you got all the right data. I mean, that's obviously, we're not missing anything, making sure we're executing, but just, yeah. Okay. I don't have anything else.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Van Cura.
Hi, Solomon, hi.
Hello.
Couple questions. I'm looking at this 4 or 5 page document, and that's the only information I have in front of me. It's a daunting task. How do you go about identifying needs for 25 years? What's the process by which you do that? The size, growth of existing customers, new customers, with all the uncertainties we have for businesses, for development, so forth and so on.
So first step is to identify the developments that you currently know are coming. And so what those connection points are, what they'll be contributing.
Mm-hmm.
And so based on whether it's residential or commercial, there's formulas for determining how much how much that puts in your system. And then ones that you don't know about, what we do is based on your zoning, you make some assumptions, and we state those assumptions on what type of development you, through discussions with you guys, are expected in that area. So if you have it zoned residential, single family residential, that kind of thing will give us idea of what each connection will be contributing to your system. If you have it zoned commercial, and what densities you have those zonings.
Do you build a flexible model which allows us to flex between these assumptions and these assumptions, sort of see what the needs would be based on which path we end up being on?
Yes, it can be. I think I understand what you're saying. You can adjust. This can be a living document.
So it's just not one answer, right? It's a range, just like with you. A stock price, there's a range that the price could be of the stock in the future, depending on specific variables. I'm curious if the report you do sort of gives a range of it's going to be somewhere between here and here, and you pick which probability you think is most likely.
So it'll be a planning document, and
Okay.
so we will describe the methodology and the assumptions that are made, that then will give you a estimate of what you need to do, when you need to do it, and where you need to do it.
Okay.
And so those things can be adjusted. However, our math is going to put in our assumption that this is this type of residential, has this density, therefore it's going to contribute this much. But it could be, I mean, if you want a range, we can do, well, if you do this, but what we would like to do is, based on what we understand you anticipate and want your growth to be, is that we put together a model that reflects that.
I would suggest that no one up here would be able to predict what that growth is going to be with any certainty for 25 years. That's the difficulty. So maybe to short circuit, if you have work like you've done in the past on this, you can share a report with us, sort of give us a sense of the type of data that's in it for a different town.
Sure.
It might help to sort of give the context of what type of out data we're going to have. And I'm less concerned with the immediate future, and I understand Alderman Sanders' point that we're trying to make sure we're comfortable that in the near term we have the capacity to support new development. I'm curious about 10 years out, 15 years out, right? With the growth could be wildly different between those different models.
Sure.
If you give us a sense of what are your reports, maybe I can read through it and get a better sense of the type of data coming back. This mentions in here, just to move on a little bit, you'll convene an initial meeting with us, and other stakeholders will go over, verify scope and objectives. Do you go into that meeting with a fairly detailed project plan, and the purpose of that meeting is for us to fine tune or make some slight adjustments, or is that a much more building block from the bottom up type of meeting?
So we'll come and tell you what the methodology that we're proposing is, and then based on that, get your input on where you feel like, well, we're thinking about this residential actually that's not in this zoning, or and what you want to see. So if you're wanting to see ranges, things like that, we can, whether we give you a number or a range, that's what we're talking about in the scoping. What do you want your final product to look like, so that we deliver a final product that is what you're looking for.
We've had a lot of discussions with folks like Salado Creek and others that are very concerned of the quality of the water that the sewage plant is putting back into the system. If we decided that we needed to make a more stringent release requirements, and that affected, I don't know, processing time and other flow rates type of things, is that built into your assumption when you put a model together, or is that something that would have to be considered later?
That's one of the ones I'm going to have to take back to my wastewater engineer to ask that question. Okay. I didn't specifically ask her that question before I came. Now, I would assume that she can manipulate whatever inputs and put that in there, just from knowing engineering, but the specific, is she planning on that? I do not know the answer to that question.
Okay. And could you give us a sense of what other entities you've done this type of work? Is there anyone around us that you've done a capacity analysis for sewer systems that?
Yes, I can get that to you. I don't have that on the top of my head.
Okay.
No.
That's it, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I just have a couple questions, and they kind of go with Alderman Sandor. He mentioned the possibility of acquiring another sewer system that is north of town. And I just wonder, as we think about the scope of the services and thinking about our growth, I mean, obviously it makes sense to evaluate that given the needs of the village. Can you give us an idea of whether or not, I assume what it would be, Alderman Sandor, is we would be evaluating that system as far as what we want MRB to look at. Is that a fair statement?
It is, and I want to be clear that I'm not wanting to hold up the process in front of us.
Right.
I think this could be a separate task order and still work together with whatever data we put together, you put together, your team, and report back to us. I just, even if he needs to go ahead and start working up a proposal, so that we can work that into a budget for later.
Yeah.
I just don't think it would be responsible for the village to continue to procrastinate these kinds of ideas when they are on the table right now, because the Collins family put it on the table.
Yeah.
So,
Totally agree with
yeah,
that.
it's all about, capital, right?
Right.
And trying to, work hard as a board, and hopefully boards to maybe give them a head start at putting Salado, indefinitely in a better financial position than it ever has been.
Yes, I totally agree with all of that. And would agree that putting a project like this probably into the current order would slow us down, given our needs. But it would be helpful to know what is the scope of that and how long would it take.
Yeah, I think and please stop me if I misspeak, because I'm certainly not an engineer, but yes, I think if the board were to approve the task order so that they can get to work.
Yeah.
I just wanted them to know that perhaps the board would also want to see what costs would be associated with adding to that scope, even if it weren't in the immediate future. Right. I don't think it will hold up. You have capacity now. You're operating at about, I think, 26 or 7% of what is available today, but the balance could be utilized pretty quickly, given a lot of the things that Ms. Walsh mentioned and things that we know about.
Yep.
So I'm just trying to stay in front of it.
Yeah, I think that's very prudent. Plus, as we think about our needs going forward, acquiring capacity now or in the near term is probably less expensive than something 5, 6, 7 years down the road. So just trying to be prudent in looking at what our opportunities are and building that into our planning process. The other thing I wanted to hit on real quick is you had at the bottom of your report additional services that weren't built into the proposal, which is fine. You typically see things like that, but I guess I just wanted to ask you, I'd prefer if it's something that we're likely to use. I don't like scope creep in proposals. When you have additional services, you can easily get into scope creep because these are hourly, paid by the hour type services. So I'm just wondering, in your opinion, is there anything, as we look at our proposal here, is there anything in additional services that we're likely to have to utilize that we need to account for as far as your bid goes?
No. So the additional services is there to basically make sure that we are all on the same page on the scope. That the scope does not include, you're not asking us to take a planning document and then go build it. You're not asking us to take a planning document and also administer it in a grant in some way. You don't have outside funds that you're potentially using that you need us to do the grant administration.
Okay.
And, like, we're going to see the size of your pipes, the slope of your pipes, and that's all going to go into the calculations. But you're not asking us to go run a camera down every single one of those pipes and see the condition, or if there's, it's not in depth enough that we're like, there's a clog here kind of stuff. So that's what is basically we're saying everybody understands we're not doing those things. They're not things that should be in a planning document, but sometimes there can be a different understanding from folks that, well, we thought you were going to tell us where our clogs were, something general like that.
Okay, that's helpful. Appreciate that. Okay, that's really all the questions I have at the moment, so thank you. Any other follow-up questions from anyone on the board?
That discussion you had is exactly the reason why I'd like to sort of see an example report of what they're going to provide. Yeah. Even if it's not exactly the same, it just gives us a context of what should we expect it to be included, what's not included. So if we want to change the scope, now is the time to do that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And for that sample, I assume, want me to send that to John and he can distribute it. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Alderman.
Okay, we'll move on to the next item, which is discussion regarding the review of the proposed hot fund hotel occupancy tax fund application. Who's taking that? Yeah, all right. You're the right person.
Good evening, Mayor Ingram and Aldermen. This evening, we'll just discuss real quickly a little bit about the hot tax application update. When we do have a hot tax application, there is also a plan in place, which is the ordinance. And as we had discussed last meeting, when Table Rock had asked for funds, it came out of the arts section because there was not necessarily a plan in place and an application that went along with it. And so I originally gave you, in your packet, you're gonna see ordinance number 2008.25. That is the original application for the process on page, sorry, I should have cited that for you. There's going to be a section B, an attachment B on page, well, it'll be one of 11. If you go back a little bit further, after page 9, you'll see attachment B. That was the process originally for the hot tax application. And then on your ordinance 2016.11, they had abolished section amendment B. You'll see that at the bottom of the very first page. It'll say this ordinance is amended by the removal of attachment B. So everything that was on attachment B that had the plan for the hot tax is completely abolished. So with that in mind, there hasn't necessarily been a plan in place nor an application that has been approved by the board since then to move forward with it. And so in September of 2024, an application was presented to the board for this, and I don't know if you guys have it. I hear y'all digging through papers. Are y'all okay on it? Okay, all right. I just heard paper shuffling. So with that in mind, we just, speaking with staff, we need to put a plan in place, and that's going to include us updating an ordinance, which we can use this ordinance that was in the past as a good guide, along with the application that was presented in September of 2024. And I just wanted to, there are some highlights on the application I wanted to kind of go over. And for right now, this is really more just a discussion just to show you our draft. And then we can obviously work on that after we do our budget and complete our budget. We'd like to have a workshop with you guys in the Texas Hotel Lodging, and then be able to sit down and put the plan in place and finalize an application so we have some organization on it. But in the meantime, on the application on page 2, at the very bottom of it, it talks about the process, and it's highlighted on there just to give you some ideas of who would be in charge and how the process could take place. And then also, it also has a guide here that says maybe if you wanted to open up applications and have them open and turned in May 1st through August the 1st, and that way when you're doing your annual budget, you have those applications in place. And then they can be decided and they could be put in that next fiscal year budget. So that's just a food for thought. Just don't, I mean, there's a lot of options, so please don't feel overwhelmed. When we discuss all of these options in workshop, we'll kind of narrow it down with what would make sense on that. On page 3, there's also a number 2 is highlighted with a dollar amount, and you can go up to a certain amount. You can decide if you want to pick a 3-year term where maybe somebody gets this funds maybe just for 3 years, or maybe they've been doing their event for 3 years before they even can apply for a hot tax fund. So those are some other ideas that you can put towards your application, and then how you want to conduct, who is going to handle it. Just a food for thought on that. Maybe a suggestion could be have a tourism board that just handles hot tax. We get them acclimated with the knowledge of the hot tax through the Texas Hotel Lodging Association. They have to be, where they come and teach them how to use it to review applications. That way that is out of our hands. We have a board for that. They pick through applications and then they give it to us to present. So that's just an option. Again, we will discuss all of that at workshop, but it is a food for thought, like very similar to the ordinance that we had seen here on that. And then on page 4, it just says here, the duties would be adopted, obviously, by you guys whenever you decide, whenever we do go through all of that. Page 5 is a funding checklist as well to make sure they meet the criteria. So when you're looking at a hot tax application, you are looking at the 2-part test, and that 2-part test is the usage of the hot tax funds to promote tourism in the convention hotel industry, and then there's another and to that, which is also going to meet the 9 categories. You do see 9 categories on, well, it says 7 on page 2, and the reason you're going to see a couple of them out, the first one is for your convention center or visitor center, and there's, when you're looking at the category, there's a 1 and a 2 for that, so it's just combined on the first one, and then it delegates from here. And then from there, let's see. I think we've covered that. And then, yeah, okay. So then keep going forward. At the end of the application, you will have on page, I wrote it down, page 13 is going to be the post-op that they would give us at the end of that. So at the end of their funding, they would give us a post-op and answer these questions to make sure that for the next go-around, if you wanted to take a look at it and you'd know whether it fit the criteria that you wanted for approving. So, I mean, this is in depth, obviously. It's very overwhelming. Don't look at it and be too consumed, but it just give you some thoughts and some ideas so that whenever we do get together, then you can see all the options out there. And we'll narrow it down for you guys. And again, we are still working on budget. Ideally, I think the budget should be completed first so that we know what we have to spend, so we'll know what direction to do that with, and then have the Texas Hotel Lodging come, give you guys a good information on how the hot tax funds works, how we need to use it. Then we put our plan in place, finish our ordinance, get it updated and approved, and then have your application approved as well too.
I got questions.
Yeah, I figured there'd be a lot.
And these are just more of an education thing. But so, for example, on page 4, it talks about no new event shall be eligible for hot funds. Is that driven by this Texas hot HOT?
No. So this application was an application that we looked at from Beeville back in 2024.
Because I look at the hot funds as a way that we can use funds that we've generated from people staying here to bring more people to the city. So it seems restricting to me that we would not allow a new event to take use of hot funds because we don't have 3 years of experience with them. It just felt like a restriction.
It's just an option, and you can restrict it however tight you want or loose that you want, as long as it meets the category.
The initial reaction was, this is meant to bring people in to spend money. So why would it seemed like there was a whole bunch of restrictions here that would actually have the exact opposite effect of bringing people in to spend money, which is not what we want to do with this.
Right. Okay. And John's experience with that, since this was Beeville, he could tell you a little bit about that too.
As the former city manager prior to here in Beeville, I was actually involved with the development. I just found this out yesterday that this is patterned out. They were referred to by somebody referred that, what Beeville did. So specific to that 3-year requirement, that was the specific thing the city council in Beeville wanted to have in place.
Got it.
Beeville did not have that in place up until, or prior to about 3 years ago. And part of that, there were other reasons why that came into play, that the council there wanted to add that. But as Deanna said, it's not, you don't have to have that. It was just, that was picked up.
Well, I understand that this is just a preview, but I think it's helpful as you start to turn the crank on these things. maybe get some initial reaction.
Yeah, which is why when we do get ready to actually do the workshop, we'll have a couple of ideas in mind. Obviously, there's 1,000 ideas,
Yeah.
but we'll put some ideas in mind, and that way we can narrow it down to exactly how you guys would like to do that.
The other one that struck me as a question mark more than anything else is page 3. It talks about maximum funding, $5,000 per event, up to $15,000. And I appreciate that we don't have unlimited funds. But on the $15,000, it starts to get very prescriptive on exactly under what conditions $15,000 could be approved. And it goes to the Board of Aldermen to approve it. My initial reaction was, I sure hope that the people up here are going to make smart decisions. And it felt a little constrained was the word I was thinking of, right? If it's a big event and it makes sense to the city and it's a little bit more expensive, it seems like we're tying ourselves in a knot as to we can only say yes if it meets these criteria,
Right.
which seemed counterproductive
Sure.
again.
And not knowing what Beeville's budget was at the time, maybe that was what fit for their budget, and when we get
Yes,
our
ma'am.
budget, we can see how we decide we want to do ours.
Correct. And I'm just remembering, I'm not sure if it's a horror story, but it's a concerning story, right? That somehow the Christmas stroll, which is a huge event for us here in Salado, was not able to get funding. Was it last year?
This last year in December, correct.
And I'm not sure if that was because they didn't get the forms filled out correctly or the timing was wrong, but that's just sacrilege as far as I'm concerned. It's an event that brings huge amount of people to Salado, huge amounts of dollars. And I'm curious if this current version here would restrict us from funding Christmas stroll, or that was just a procedural issue that we just didn't get the paperwork done.
Yes, this would not restrict it at all, and
So I got to go back on that.
Sure.
But, I mean, it's this. It sounds to me like, did we not have an application prior to this? Because you said then Part B was
we did not have
abolished.
one that ever got approved by the board prior to it. So when the chamber did apply, Mr. De La Rosa and Ms. Pence put one together. They put it based together on the hot tax law to make sure that it fit that category,
Yep.
and to fit in that. And there was a time crunch because they were looking for the money for the chamber. And so they did put one together real quick for that. And in the meantime, we do need to have a plan, the ordinance and the application really.
So the reality
Ideally.
is, as a village, we had never, this is the first time we actually have a application that has been approved by the board for events.
Correct. This one was presented in 2004 when I first came on board. And then I had asked a couple of months later for it to be reviewed and approved, and my board report did not get put on the agenda.
Okay. So my concerns are kind of this coming year, I foresee stroll coming in. I do not want to be in a position where other surrounding communities are supporting our event here.
Correct.
And we are saying we don't have an application.
Right.
So there's a little bit of a sense of urgency for this for me.
Sure.
As here, because
Yes.
one, we have funds. One, we need to be bringing more events in.
Right.
I was really, if you haven't, our 4th of July is going to be great. I mean,
It
it's
is.
the first, and I hope that's an annual thing.
Sure.
So I think that's a step in the right direction, but we need more of those type of things
Yes.
to make sales tax.
Which is
And
why
it
this
all
is
feeds
here
itself.
right now. Correct.
Okay. So,
And to do it in the correct order that it needs to be, because
Mm-hmm.
by the Texas Hotel Law Association, it does require a plan in place, which is an ordinance and an application.
so do we need to set a committee of 2 board members to work with the committee
And
to get this across
that was the
line?
question is, the next question would be, if we do a workshop, who would like to be a part of that? And that way, when we get Justin or any of those gentlemen here, then we will be prepared for that.
I'm
Correct.
going to tweak what you just
Yep.
said. When Justin from the Texas Hotel and Lodging Association comes, we will invite all of you. I think that's important for all of you to
Yeah.
be a part of that. But to your question of having 2, whichever number, 2 or 1, 2, whatever members of the aldermen on that working
Sorry.
committee, absolutely. If any of you want to be on there, yeah, just let us know which of you would like to do that.
So what is your goal for a timeline for this? I know what mine is, but I want to hear it from you. What's a realistic goal for this to get solidified and hopefully before, we get into Q4?
I would like to say, if that's fair, by August the 1st, potentially. Y'all are in budget, so it may be at the end of August.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
September 1st.
Okay.
As a goal, it might leak into, depending on timing of.
I think our budget definitely needs
having
to be
Justin
done
come,
first,
but,
because there's
yeah.
a few things we need to look at what budget when we know how much hot tax is bringing in, but what we also need to be transparent is what's coming out of it to know what's left over. And so with that, then that will give you a good solid ground to move forward with.
But that should not impact what our criteria is.
Not necessarily your criteria, but maybe your dollar
That
amounts.
tells us when we
Correct.
say, sorry,
Yes.
try next
Yep.
year, we're out of budget.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
we'll come back. But
yeah.
the fact that we've been accumulating and not spending, we're hurting, we're not feeding the engine. So
Correct.
we need to start the engine, with hopefully 250th anniversary of our country will be the change of that. We'll go out in the bank. So, hey, it's really good. So, but no, it's just we've been sitting on funds that could have been used.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately the goal of this, is to get an application and a process that's very transparent and clear, so that happens.
Exactly.
Why would we wait until, why is that goal being set for the front side of September? Isn't that gonna get us awfully close to people needing to, how long does it take someone to request, assuming they get approved, to have hot tax funds?
By the time they get the application, it really depends on how long it takes them to fill it out and to turn it in. So even if they had it by September 1st, if they wanted it for like the stroll, for instance, they could have that ready and have it by.
But I mean, if that's the goal, and I think it should be, to Alderman Dunch's point, we're already cutting it awfully close, if September is our goal.
Just to clarify, for the application, what Deanna's talking about, setting up an reviewing or establishing an updated application and process, doesn't keep anybody now, or any organizations now, from applying for hot funds between now and that point.
We just won't be able to approve it until we have an ordinance in the process,
But we can keep going forward, but while we're updating this.
Yeah, point being is there are some entities that are as familiar as anyone in this room with the Salado Christmas Stroll, and they probably want to participate. I also have talked to several of them who have kind of thrown the towel in on wanting to participate on some of their ideas, because they feel like what we're talking about currently is an impossible task sometimes to get done, even when they utilize their own resources, up to and including, I think, the gentleman you just spoke of, who says, no, that's a go. But somehow or another in the past, with other administrations and other boards, they have been declined. So I'm not an expert at the hot tax stuff by any means, but I think I understand basically what it's for, and it's not being used for that, clearly. So we don't want to hinder any applicants that could get approved this year.
I just need to make a clarification, though. The whole purpose of all of this, and the reason that when Table Rock asked for their funds, is we didn't have a plan in place. We don't have a plan in place. So without your ordinance, you don't have anything to have for applications. So even if you have an application but you don't have that ordinance, you don't have it.
So how long does it take to do the ordinance, Mr. Benson? Is that too much of a loaded question?
I would say 30 days to get a basic ordinance in place to do that. And I apologize, I'm going to have to review that in more detail than what I've done. So find that, but
okay. I think we should target a basic. Back to your point, Alderman Sanders, is basic something in place. We can always adjust it. Let's get something.
That's my point. We can get something in place and then come back after that and adjust it after we go through this.
And the other side of that too is depending on who's asking as well. If they're asking for an event, say like for Stroll, they could go under the art section because they've got music and art, that sort of thing. So you could use that route while you're working the rest too. So depending on who is asking and what it is, it still has to fit in that 9 categories. And so there could be a place for the museum or for the art section in those categories while you're working through the rest. So yes, correct.
Yeah, I'm going to step in here real quick and just say, what we're missing is the structure.
Correct.
Because we don't have a tourism council.
Correct.
I don't believe.
No, we do not.
We haven't read it. Everybody ought to go through and read this because it's pretty finite as to what you need to set up.
Yeah.
That would take pressure off the board if
Sure.
we had a tourism council, because then you can run everything through them and then we just approve everything. I don't know that we're gonna get that set up tomorrow,
Right.
but I would hope that's part of
Sure.
the long-term plan here.
But if
is-
somebody's doing an event, we can still help them to fit maybe in that museum category or the art category while we're working the rest of the details. Does that make sense?
It does. It can, Matt?
Yeah.
If someone applies
Mhm.
and their application is qualified,
Right.
is the board required to approve that applicant, or can the board also say no? I'm just asking that because I think it's worth asking.
That's really actually a good question. I have not
Not sure.
seen anybody turn it down. I don't think you have to approve it because, again, if it meets all the hot tax funds and meets that application, I don't know why you wouldn't approve it.
Because you wouldn't have the funds maybe, because you've
Unless you don't
the
have
budget.
funds,
That's what we
right.
need the
Have you
budget
set the
And that's
budget
where
up?
the budget comes
That's
into
the
play,
question,
right?
which is the first step, is
first
putting
step.
money in your budget.
Yes. And I think honestly, when we get to our budget, you guys are actually gonna be looking at probably your, when we look at the budget, we're gonna be looking at what we have versus reserves, and you're gonna be pulling from reserves right now.
But if we put more heads in beds, you feed it.
Yes, but we also have, you also have to remember, at the end of the expenses, we do have an expense that we just paid for a reimbursement, and that takes a big budget out, and that's what we need to be transparent about when we look at the expenses in our budget, and that's why it's gonna go into reserve for the next few years. I'm talking about Stagecoach,
Yeah, but then I agree with that, but that's still funding because I've worked with David and they have to spend that in accordance with.
They
the
are, but
funding.
that's for Stagecoach, not for the whole city.
Well, badly written contract then, because, anyway. No, but David is absolutely very
And
supportive
he's
of the
been very,
community.
he
and he's
absolutely
been-
has,
He's coming to
yes.
the table for the 4th of
Right, but that
July.
money, we can't require them to spend for every other venue. They would have to be willing to do that. So that money actually is going back to them to spend towards Stagecoach. And then again,
But
when,
it still has, my understanding, it still has, when I read that
it
contract.
does still have to
meets
fit,
meets all the
it
criteria.
does. So it still
So it still
promotes
has to put the
Salado.
heads in the beds and it
Right,
still-
so
so it's not
anything,
just them.
what you can say is anything left over would go to the additional to the additional hotels for heads and beds, correct? For the advertising.
Is approval of applications, do all those come to the Board of Aldermen?
So that would be where, when you
Or
put
can
your
we
ordinance in
delegate some of
place,
these?
kind of, I really like the idea of just having the tourism board just to go through those applications. It takes the pressure off you guys, and there's no, it can't be decided on, favoritism being in a small town or who knows who. Again, I really think this old ordinance that we had a really good setup for that, and let them pick through applications, get a time period, like if August 1st is too late because we have our fiscal year in October, if we wanted to do March through May 1st, and then they know they want to apply, they give us all of that. Our tourism board takes a look it over. They're very versed because we are connecting them with the Hotel Lodging Association for learning and grasping the hot tax law and knowing that when they're starting to go through application process, then they give us the ones that they think would be a good benefit, and then you guys get that opportunity to look it over to say, we'll fund this one, or maybe we don't want to fund another one.
Alderman Van Cura, will you please repeat your question to Mrs. Whitson?
Did I not?
Yeah, my
Sure,
question was
I'm
who
sorry.
approves, and I was wondering if all approvals have to go to the Board of Aldermen, or there can be a delegation that's done for even smaller amounts. I mean, because not against having them here, and I think the board
Sure.
would appreciate the visibility, but I don't think our time is well spent on approving $1,000 applications either.
I've
Right?
seen all of it through the council, but there may be an exception for that, Mr. Benson.
My understanding, and this is a good question to verify with the Texas Lodging and Hotel Association, but my understanding that the Board of Aldermen would have to approve an allocation now. I'm going to use Beeville as an example. 3 years ago, Beeville moved from taking applications for events, using applications for hot funds for an event on an first come, first served basis throughout the year, and that created some problems, particularly in the latter part of the fiscal year. the city there moved to a deadline, submittal deadline, and that applications for the following year for the following fiscal year had to be submitted by a certain date. Those were reviewed in context to the requirements to make sure they were qualified for hot funds. If that was a yes, and the city had the available hot funds coming in the following year, they were approved and they were actually budgeted, line item budgeted for those events in the budget. And then after the budget was adopted at the beginning of the new fiscal year, the council took formal action to approve those. So when those events came in, they had already been approved. And so whether it was $1,000 or $10,000, whatever the dollar amount, it was just a staff action because the council in their case, or the Board of Aldermen, had already approved that. The other caveat Beeville switched to was they did not write the check or give the funding before the event. It was a reimbursable after the event to confirm that they did what they were supposed to do. And there's two sides to that. On one hand, that event has to come up with the money on the front end to carry, and then they get reimbursed. And that on smaller events, that can be a challenge sometimes, depending on the dollar amount. But it helped the city ensure compliance with the statutory requirements for hot funds. So, and these are all aspects to be discussed.
Yeah. And I will ask,
do that or not.
I'll ask Justin, that's a good question. I've only known that the council is the one who does the approval for the hot tax funds, but I can ask him if somebody else can be appointed for that. I have not seen it any other way. But
what I think maybe, unless I'm misunderstanding Alderman Ventura, I feel like what you might be aiming for is that if there were a committee, a tourism committee, that could review these applications and then be a recommending body to us, just like other pieces of business we do, that would be helpful and make our time more efficient.
Even more than that, I was wondering if we should delegate a certain dollar amount to them for approval, and anything over that dollar amount would come to us if required.
that's actually what the tourism council would do for you guys to eliminate the time.
Yeah.
And he was looking for dollar-wise.
Okay. Okay.
And to know who could approve, and I can ask, I will definitely ask
Yeah,
that.
I mean, it would have to make sense, but I mean, it's that way, the process moves a lot faster anyway, right?
Okay.
Somewhat similar to the P&Z committee. So there's all recommendations, but we would probably refine certain small dollar amount to just go. But it's pretty well laid out. I think we get into a workshop, we can organize all this and then turn people loose.
Yep, I think so. Then it'll just be better, much easier than not having anything in place.
So what do we do before 2024? Because this came back in 2024. You said there was this proposal for an ordinance that kind of got tabled.
That would have been with Dawn, and I wasn't here when Dawn was here, so I can't answer for that.
Even before Dawn.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, like, how did it function?
Yeah.
Well, we have 400,000 in the account. Collected the money, but never have it figured out how to spend it.
Okay, I think I got my answer. So, but you're concerned right now that we're running over budget, which is, we know we got plenty of reserve, but we know we're running over budget.
You could potentially you're going to need to know what dollar amount you want and to cap so that you know how much you want left from your funds and or from reserves.
Okay.
That answer that question.
All right. Anything else, guys? From anyone? All right. Well, thank you, Deanna. I appreciate it very much. All right, we have our last item for the workshop. I know we're running a little bit behind schedule here, so we'll try to move through this last item hopefully fairly quickly. This is item E, discussion regarding the final plot of Zabranic property, Thomas Arnold Road, a subdivision in the ETJ of the Village of Salado, Bell County, being a 12.785 acre tract located in H.W. Hurd Survey, abstract number 398, Bell County, Texas. Said 12.785 acre tract being all of that certain 12.785 acre tract of land recorded in document number 2023-044763, official public records of Bell County. So with that, who is going to take this topic?
So, Mayor and Alderman, I am going to present this. Thank you. The proposed final plat consists of dividing one existing residential lot containing approximately 12.785 acres into 6 lots. The proposed property is in the ETJ, and the plan is to sell the property. Just to give you some background information on this, the plat application was submitted in our pipeline before the interlocal agreement was signed between the Village of Salado and the county. So that's why you're seeing this plat this evening. For the board's awareness, the plat has been updated to include the Planning and Zoning Commission's signature block as requested on the final city engineer's comment letter that's in your packet. Although the revision has been completed, the digital copy in your packet did not reflect that update. So I just wanted to reaffirm that that has been done for your knowledge. This project was presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission at the June 9th meeting, and the Planning and Zoning Commission recommend approval to the BOA, a vote 4-0. We do have a representative here that will answer any questions that you may have. Mr. Quicksall is here. And I don't have any other comments. That would be Mr. Quicksall to answer any further questions from the board.
Quicksall, if you want to come on up. And I will start with Alderman Sandor, see if you have any questions.
Hello. Will you just give the board a very generic and general description of what it is that the subdivision is going to be for?
Yeah, sure. I mean, as y'all know, with it not being in the village city limits, it doesn't have zoning. All right. So I don't want to say that it's exactly, that they are going to be residents. But I will tell you that the owner of the property has presented a set of restrictions that match the Bluffs of Salado that's right next door to this, which is a residential development. But there is 4 lots that are along Thomas Arnold Road, 2 that are in the back that you actually have to go through Bluffs of Salado to get to. And I believe the intent at this time, is for this to be residents. But with it not being in the city limits, things are subject to change.
And my only other question, no, actually I don't have a question because I can see it here. I don't have any further questions, Mayor.
Okay. Alderman Lassiter, any questions?
This is not in the city limits. No plan to come into it.
No, sir. This is going to be on septic. There's no services from the city.
Okay. It's in the covenants on the property for the Bluffs would mean that it would be residential, but subject to change.
Sure. I mean, if they are, the restrictions that were presented to me are like the Bluffs of Salado, not the Bluffs of Salado.
Yeah. Okay. Similar to.
Yes, sir.
And there's no commercial in the Bluffs of.
That's
right.
correct.
Yeah. Okay. And they're just selling these lots individually? Is that what they're doing? Okay. I don't have any further questions.
Okay. Alderman Dunn?
I have no questions.
Alderman Van Cure.
I'm just curious if there's any comments you received from the Bluffs of Salado on this replatting and potential sale.
No, sir.
Anyone here from the Bluffs of Salado? No. So these could be anything basically, right? So I mean, when you talk about the restrictions could be like Bluffs of Salado, does that mean that's a deed restriction, or what type of restriction is that?
That's correct.
It's a deed restriction.
Correct.
And the deed restrictions can change.
Correct.
Okay. Just wonder why Brian Sunshine doesn't talk about stuff like this.
You have to ask him.
So I mean, it's not in ours. It's in the ETJ. It's not in the village. You're getting water from Salado Water Supply Company.
That's correct.
And then has he planned out already the engineering to go to 6 different lots, or is that something to be done in the future?
They have done the water study to show that they can get the required meters But I do believe that all that, as they sell, then they will obviously provide the water lines to get back where they need to get and put the meters in.
Okay, so Ricky Preston's aware of, he may be installing water meters and water lines to this, but that hasn't been planned yet.
Well, I mean, they might have. They've already paid upwards of 5 figures for the water study itself for this division, and Salado Water Supply has reviewed this.
But they haven't done, there's no construction that's been done, right? There's no water meters there on these properties.
I don't believe those water meters are in yet.
No question.
Okay. My only comment is some way I'm going to go back to Alderman Sandor's comments earlier in the meeting. I'm actually kind of disappointed that we've got a development that's right on our village property that is not being annexed into the village. I'm not saying that that's your fault. It's just, you know, my rule of thumb is we're trying to protect the village, and we get a subdivision that's right on top of us like that. We have no control over what goes on out there. Bell County doesn't have near the kind of restrictions or ordinances that the village does. And so I'm just kind of curious, were there ever any discussions entertained between the developers and the Village of Salado Board of Aldermen around this project?
The owner would have to talk to you about that and answer that question. As far as, you know, looking at it from the owner's standpoint, when there is no services that can be provided by the Village of Salado, they are typically reluctant to annex the property into the Village of Salado. But, you know, I do believe that at 12.8 acres, and you're looking at 4 lots fronting there, I mean, this property could have been anything. It could have been a junkyard, okay?
Yeah.
This probably win.
And I don't know from just haven't had the discussions with the board here, but I don't know what our long-term plans are as it relates to being able to support city sewer out to that area of the village.
Well, I don't either, but I'm not in defense of this subdivision, but just speaking from maybe an expertise standpoint, and to follow the parcel that's being subdivided is so small, it would immediately fail for them, I think, in a pro forma to try to math out the sanitary sewer extension that they would require. It's just, if it were right on the property boundary, we'd probably be having a different discussion. Yeah. Or we could be, right?
Could be, yeah.
But this would not math there, unfortunately. Not for how small the total acreage is and for what they're trying to do. You know, it is a little bit of a handshake in good faith, but I think given the geographic location of this and who I think the owners are, I don't think we're going to see a junkyard.
I don't think so either. I mean, back to speaking on the owners, I mean, all this property was originally Hodge property. C.B. Hodge, Mary Hodge owned a ton of land out here, developed the area. Hodges still live right next to this. When, unfortunately, Mary passed away, this went down to the 3 siblings. You know, I do believe that they are really trying to save the integrity of the property, because even right next door, Claude Hodge still lives there. One of his son lives there, Barry Hodge. You know, I mean, I think that there was good intent with this development to keep it small, high-end, residential. I do believe that's what it is. But because it's not zoned, I can't just sit there and say, this is going to be this.
Right. I got you.
I also think, Mayor, that the properties immediately adjacent to, is that Thomas Arnold?
Yes.
To the point that Mr. Quicksall has made a couple of times now, that he can't speak on what could happen there, because they certainly could do something commercial there. But I think, given who owns it, the proximity of where that family lives in relation to this subject property, and what you see around that, in some cases, the newest homes out there are well over $1 million each. I think even if you did see a use other than residential, I'm just thinking out loud, they would probably be more like professional use, you know, and something I would also want to presume that the developer, again, for all the other reasons I forestated, would make sure that, you know, restrictions in place for those buildings would be conducive to protecting the properties immediately around it, given they live next to it. That's what I hope.
Okay. That's not unreasonable to conclude, given the value of the properties that are out there, so I agree with that. Just disappointing.
Mayor, maybe one more question, if you don't mind.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
So if I understand correctly, this will be outside of the village, which means this will be protected by Bell County Sheriff, is that right? There'll be no police services from us?
I'm not an expert on that whatsoever.
Chief, this is outside of Salado, so this means what in terms of police coverage? Okay. So if they have an issue, they call Bell County. Is there some type of collaboration that happens between you and them? Do they ever call you up and say, hey, I can't get there for 15 minutes? You know, could you check it out, Chief? Or they're on their own? I'm just curious. Okay. So if these lots were built, multi-million-dollar homes, they're basically Bell County Sheriff service and protection, not Village of Salado police. Do not serve them.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah. That's just $1 million home. A couple $1 million home you're putting there, and you've got a sheriff protection basically. It's just, and you're right next to a city. I found it strange. I understand the restriction.
But Eagle Ranch would be pretty similar to that as well, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Potentially. I mean, like I said, we'll see when the restrictions fully come into play what they do there. And it's not a developer who came in and bought this land. It was somebody who even grew up on this land. And so there is integrity there for their vision, which might be residential. But I do think, I mean, with it being what it is, it's along Thomas Longer Road. Those four that are along there, it has that potential. But,
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that was our last item on the agenda, so we will go ahead and adjourn the workshop. So thank you for attending. We will take a 5-10 minute break. We'll get started at 7 o'clock on the Board of Aldermen meeting. Thank you all very much.
Board of Aldermen, meeting. Secretary, Secretary, call the roll.
Present. Here.
Here.
Okay, first item is to do the invitation, so I would ask everybody to think about it. Almighty God, we thank you for the opportunity to gather together this evening to conduct business of this city. We ask that you grant this Board of Aldermen wisdom, discernment, and integrity as they make decisions that affect the lives of our city. We pray for a spirit of unity, respect, cooperation in our community. Guide our discussion so that they may be productive and focused on the common good and the prosperity of our day. We also offer our gratitude to our first responders, city staff, and all those who work daily to protect and serve this city. May our actions tonight honor the trust and faith in the name of Christ.
Amen.
Okay, we will start off with the pledge of allegiance. Okay, we will start this meeting off with first item being public comment. Item A in the public comment, item not on the agenda. We have two people who want to speak regarding items not on the agenda. Start with Linda Reynolds.
Linda Reynolds, 1110 Mill Creek Drive, Salado, Texas. I wrote a letter to the editor this week, and I thought save you $1 in case you didn't want to buy one. My mother always told me a lot of things. Actually, she died when she was 97, so she had plenty of time to tell me many things. One of the things she told me is haste makes waste. My letter. The June 11th Salado Village Voice quoted one alderman who suggested his government was not efficient in how we do business with developers. I disagree. We elect 3 new members of the leadership every 2 years. Next year, May 2027, 3 aldermen will have served the community for 2 years, Alderman Sandor, Lassiter, and Dunch, and be up for re-election. And 3 new members, Alderman Ventura, Marfarolo, it's hard, but he's not here, and Mayor Ingram will have their first year of serving under their belts. Of all our current board members, only Alderman Lassiter participated in earlier village developments. He served on the Planning and Zoning Board as chairman and was a member of the Sewer Impact Fee Committee. In fact, on March the 11th, 2025, the Planning Board heard Southern Oaks Development Roseman's presentation. P&Z Chairman Lassiter and member Turnbow and McClure smiled at the developer's presentation, I was there, and approved the concept. I didn't say anything, happily. April the 3rd of 2025, the BOA voted, Administrator De La Rosa added the plan to the agenda for the April 3rd, 2025 Board of Aldermen meeting, and developer Roseman presented his concept plan. The April 3rd, 2025 BOA voted to table the plan. No current members were on the BOA at the meeting, and 2 members, Bell and Graham, were not running in the May 2025 election. Our new leadership, you gentlemen, has dealt with the Mayor Henry's resignation, Alderman McDonald's resignation, possibility of 3 or 4 lawsuits, including a company that Mayor Cargan had given a key to the village, firing of a village administrator, resignation of village lawyer, resignation of village election secretary during the 2026 election, hunt for an interim administrator, hunt for a new village secretary election clerk, hunt for a new interim administrator and then an administrator, and learning how to work with new mayor and 2 new aldermen. Phew. It's true, the Southern Oaks Developers Concept Plan may not have appeared on the board agenda again, but aldermen should know that the week before a BOA meeting, they can ask the administrator to add any items. Ask and you shall receive. Just remember that haste can sometimes make waste. Thank you.
Okay, next up, for, comments on items not on the agenda is Jim Boynton.
Jim Boynton, 3565 FM 2843, Salado. I want to share with you something, and I talked about it with Council Member Lassiter just a minute ago. I called Council Member Lassiter about 2 or 3 months ago and explained to him that they were over at the Sanctuary condos gutting a brand new apartment or condo. They were over there working, and I was wondering if they had a building permit. And I called him because I'd just seen him at the donut shop, and he said he was busy, whatever. My thought was I was hoping he was going to stop what he was doing and come over there and look and see what was going on. He did not do that, so I came to City Hall, and I asked to speak to the acting city manager, and after a while they decided, well, he couldn't see me, please call me, no call back. As the day went on, we see them gutting, and Chet Sutton's got pictures of it if you need to see them, where they gutted this thing, carried out the flooring and all. I never could get a confirmation whether they had a building permit or not to do or a remodel permit, but they did that, and then they dumped a dumpster in the roadway for over 30 days in a fire lane and filled it up. Pretty soon, somebody apparently, either they saw me watching them or whatever, they started pulling the door down. Sneak out, throw some stuff in, pull the door down. They went out there later on and swept the driveway off, and then got a mop and mopped all the drywall off the driveway. We've got to come up with some idea if we're really going to enforce ordinances. We're dealing with these guys. They're going to put in another subdivision just south of that. Are we going to keep having this stuff go on like this? Seriously, if we call somebody, we ought to be able to have some sort of response pretty quick. I'm not picking on anybody, but I've even talked to Councilmember Sandor one day, and he said, thing to do is sue them. Wait a minute. Our mayor and city manager approved that. When I talked to you, you told me just sue them. And so I shouldn't be in that position, nor should anybody else. I shouldn't be. I don't want to be. I've got a whole lot more stuff I could be doing, but I just made a vow when they started doing some of the crappy things they have to this city. So we get worried about out here about this 6 acres being developed. We can't even get a chainsaw and cut the trees over here for 3 years. We can't enforce that. If we start enforcing the building code on those guys, and when we have an opportunity and they're flooding. I don't know if anybody, I've mentioned to a bunch of you guys, please go over and see those people. A former mayoral candidate told me the other day that he ran across an old person over there that had been in a condo that had flooded. He saw it, one of his buddies with him saw it. So we know it's happening. We've also got different pictures of it. The problem it comes is if we don't have the gall to stand up and do something. Anyway, so this former guy that was running for mayor took me by and introduced me to the couple that their house had flooded. Well, in the course of talking to him, the people that own it had moved him out of one up the street that had like 6 or 8 inches of water inside last August. How are we going to ever get past all this? And how is the city going to absolve themselves from liability if we don't do something? It comes to a point where if we don't have the resolve to stand up and say, wait a minute, these guys aren't abiding. We're worried about all these other rules and canceling a gun shop and whatever in town. What about guys that are really causing people grief? It's dangerous. We don't even have the ability to get that quint. You got a new ladder truck. It's called a quint. It's so big, you're not going to be able to get it up and down there. And if that dumpster had been in there, they'd have never got it by there. You go to the south side on the Holland Highway and try to come in around that oak tree, that quint is not going to fit. That's what they've got to bring over there if you got a multi-story building on fire. Thanks.
Okay, we're going to move to item B, item 20. The Board of Aldermen welcomes comments and criticisms on issues and items of concern that be on the agenda. Those wishing to speak, sign in before the meeting begins, and if there's a 5-minute time limit, that's the board. Speakers have one opportunity to speak per agenda item. Public comment, agenda item, all of these speak. Every session is allowed by the Board of Aldermen. With that, we also have two requests to speak on items related to the agenda. So I will call Linda up again.
Linda Reynolds, 1110 Mill Creek Drive, Salado. I neglected to tell my accountant about selling some stock to buy a car last year when I had my taxes done, and I paid for that mistake. I had to go back and get it fixed. It's called GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. I made a mistake and I paid for it. It's my understanding that a former long-term administrator controlled the work very closely with the firm, the accounting firm we had. And if they erred, it probably was garbage in, garbage out. If we don't give them the facts, all the details, what we've done, mistakes we've made, an accounting firm cannot be held accountable. I paid for my mistakes. We're paying for those mistakes, but I would not back off an accounting firm just because of that. The other thing I want to repeat, because as a teacher I learned repetition was very important. MRB review needs to be aware of the east side of Main Street, the grinders, and how that's included. I do think you need to also be aware you may need to help people on the east side when their grinders fall apart. I don't know how much they cost, but they are at a disadvantage in this sewer system we have. It was done from the very beginning, just like those of us who don't even get to be on the sewer. It was not a fair, equal distribution. Things were done badly to begin with, and we're all paying that price now. So I also want to remind you that there are 2 hotels in our village now on the north side that may at any time decide to pay up and join the sewer system. So you have to account for them, and some restaurant or something between them possibly. Also, the new elementary building, which is looking huge now. They're doing all kinds of work on it. They've added an addition to it. There's a rumor that the superintendent is going to move over there. He's built himself a wing, and maybe we can get the civic center for a village office, but that's beside the point. Also, there's a football stadium with lots of people coming every Friday night and beyond that. There's D.R. Horton building, which, as you know, is going up right now as we speak, and that will be a 33,000 square foot office building filled with people who need to use the facility occasionally. And of course, there's the wildfire. I again did not go back and look. It's between 200 and 300 plus commercial buildings that we have an obligation to provide a sewer for. I just want you to make sure that MRB, if we're going to pay them for a survey, that they get everything in and that it's not garbage in and garbage out, that they get the real fact. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. We have several items on the consent agenda for approval. They are approval to set the Board of Aldermen meeting minutes for the May 28th and 26th. Approval of the Board of Aldermen meeting minutes for the June 4th, 2026. Second, police department monthly report. Second, the convention and visitors bureau monthly report. Acknowledgement of assistance for the police and the today from 50 today is the Naval Airport Story. Lot 001, lot 0001, 1.088. Village of and petition, Naval Airport Story LLC. Last item, acknowledgement of petition for the police and today regarding petition for the police and located last survey at 1, so on section, says 22.837%, and the portion of that whole 32.16%, and for the lot number 2011-3041, which is public record, South Texas, says 22.837%, trash, village knowledge, student, first, we have approval to approve the consent agenda. Earlier, there was a request filed after to remove the police department report, and this is the report, and that so time is off for this, and that's the people who other
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the removal of the acceptance of the police department report and the acceptance of the convention and visitors bureau monthly report.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion passed.
We'll make plans to bring the discussion of the two items removed from the consent agenda back to the board.
They're here.
Oh, they're here? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so why don't we, before we go on to the next item, let's go ahead and deal with those two reports. So, Chief, if you want to come up and give yours.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. The month of May, calls increased again. We answered 866 calls for service. That's an average of 27.93 calls per day. There were 4 arrests made in May, 147 traffic stops, 76 citations were issued. That's a 51.7% enforcement rate. 128 warnings were issued. 29 incident reports were received. Traffic accidents dropped from 62 down to 45. Our biggest call for service was self-initiated field activity traffic stops at 147. And our largest actual call for service was for reckless drivers. You have a list of notable calls for service there. I wasn't going to go over each one of them, but I will go over that third one down. May the 9th, 2026, we filed an extreme DWI. Officers observed a vehicle traveling at a high rate of speed on 2843, doing 79 miles an hour in a posted 60-mile-an-hour speed zone. Officer made traffic stop, made contact with the driver, detected odor associated with the consumption of an alcoholic beverage emitting from the individual's breath and vehicle. Got him out of the vehicle, conducted standardized field sobriety testing, and based on those field sobriety tests, he was arrested, transported to the Bell County Jail, where he was processed and gave 2 breath specimens. The first specimen was 0.167. The second specimen was 0.157. That's roughly twice the legal limit. That actually changes that offense. Any DWI, driving while intoxicated, with a BAC of 0.15 or greater, actually bumps it from a Class B misdemeanor up to a Class A misdemeanor. So that's where they get the difference between a DWI and extreme DWI. We did 112 house watches, 96 area checks. Calls for service is a little disappointing. Not calls for service, but response time, pardon me, is a little disappointing. Response time went up from 5 minutes and 6 seconds up to 6 minutes and 13 seconds. That's an increase of 1 minute and 7 seconds. It may not sound like a whole lot, but those are priority 1 calls for service, and I want to keep those down in the 5-minute or faster time range. So we're going to address that and try to improve on that. We did get 2 grants. The first one is from the Texas Police Chiefs Association. It's a $1,000 grant that is used to buy IFAKs, which are individual first aid kits. It was a competitive grant. There were only 20 grants handed out statewide, and we were lucky enough to be selected for one. With that purchase, I have placed, I received 10 IFAK kits. I placed them in each one of our police cars. I placed one in each of the public works vehicles, just in case. They're out there with lawnmowers and everything else. I have placed one here in the office, and we have one more in my office, just in case. The second grant that we got is $10,500 through the Office of the Governor. That's for 2 new handheld radios. Those funds will become available October 26th. Officer Hardy has completed his field training. I don't know if you guys have met him. Really good guy. He's completed his field training, and he's now certified for solo patrol. As you know, we've had a couple of severe flooding events, and those are going to require some extensive cleanup. We're still working on that. I've been working with Commissioner Whitson and the people with Road and Bridge to get everything cleaned up. I know that there's still stuff in the creek right now, but we're on the list, and I just wanted to reassure you that it has been addressed. With that being said, that's the monthly report for May, and I'll be happy to entertain any questions.
No questions, Mayor.
Yes, sir. Correct, sir. 2 years ago, I believe we had 9.
So we've been operating with less officers for the same time.
Yes, sir. I can tell you that calls for service in 2024, or pardon me, in 2025 were 1,466 more than we had in 2024, and we're on pace to probably beat that this year.
Funny you should say that, because I was going to ask you if you would in mind that's what I give it to. That's graph, the bar graph, I don't know what it is, it says year to date 24, year to date 25, year to date 26. May each year, 24, 25, 26. Just so visually we can see the amount of growth that's happening. Officer support staff that is staff. So I'd like to see that. I do think we're already getting to the point that we have run this lean, but I'm concerned with these response times, the amount of demands we're getting on our staff, exceeding our ability to be very responsive to them. So I would like to see that this is the start of the process.
I'll add that in on that.
If you don't mind, you don't have to do that every month, but just a snapshot like that, you do it at the end of the year. I think that'd be real helpful. And the second thing I have, I want to congratulate y'all on your department grant for the equipment for the cars, and also the new radio. Within cumulatively bring us through the new age of radio that the police officers
we would have 4 brand new handheld radios and 2 brand new in-car radios.
If you consider in your capital improvement request, or would you consider putting capital improvement request, what else should you do to have a police department office?
Yes, sir.
Do it or not, I was thinking that I'd like to raise it if we need to go more demanding to make sure we're getting the best benefit.
Yes, sir. I understand that when I was putting together my budget, I sat down and talked with each one of our officers. We had a meeting. I talked with everybody collectively, and I've talked with the majority of them, all but one, individually, and said, hey, I need to know a list. If you have a list of wants, and if you have a list of needs. Now, I'm very specific that if it's a want, then great, we'll talk about it. If it's a need, I'm going to need you to justify why this is a need. And there were several things that were identified, but they're more, I hate to say this, they're more wants than they are needs. But with that being said, I can get a list together for you guys for the next meeting, or just off the top of my head, I can tell you that some of the things that we talked about is an enclosed trailer. Reason we're looking at an enclosed trailer is because currently our barricades are inside a storage building. We have to get in the storage building, we have to load them into a vehicle, then we got to take them out to where they're at. Whereas if we had a enclosed trailer that could be fully stocked with all of our barricades at any given moment, all I have to do is back up, hook up to it, and go. It makes deploying those a lot faster, especially if we have a situation where, you know, you got to move quick. So that was one of the things that was identified. I like the idea. I would like to put it in the need category, but it's more of a want, to be 100% honest with you. There's just a little bit of work that has to be done. Some of the other things, if we are able to get that detective position, we're probably going to need a vehicle for that detective. Now, I have reached out to a couple of partners in surrounding agencies that have assisted us in the past. There may be a possibility that we could get a vehicle for free. It probably wouldn't be a brand new vehicle, but it would take care of the situation until we could afford to address it. I do know that we have one payment left on the Durangos. And so after the 27 fiscal year, that's going to be removed from our capital outlay. So that'll free up a lot of money. But like I said, I'll make a list of the items that I've got. The majority of them were, like I said, they were wants, and some of them were a little outlandish. And I was embarrassed to have the officer tell me some of those things.
Well, I personally, you can weed those out. You're our chief, in my opinion. I want to know, and I want the board to know that what we have in terms of the equipment for our use brings us to a absolutely good level of support for what we need that we're short on equipment. For instance, I know that you need a couple of more car radios that you don't have. I know that some of the other things that you have are true needs. I mean, not wants. Wish list is fine, but what you really need to have not the top of the line. We're not River Oaks in Houston or Hyde Park in Dallas, but y'all need to be properly equipped. And if you're not, I believe that you need to tell us that and assign a cost to that, and let us pick over it and see what we think we can do or ask questions. So needs to me are more important than wants. I mean, but I hope you'll do that, because we're going to need that in short order when we look at about a capital improvement plan this next year across all departments. So I asked you to do that. The last thing I had to say really was, you know, I live on Main Street, and I have for 8 years. And so I'm on it constantly, up and down, daytime, nighttime, walking dogs, the whole 9 yards. I truly believe that we need to pay more attention to the speed of the amount of traffic we have on Main Street. I remember 8 years ago, I could walk across the street practically any time, not even have to look. Main Street today is extremely busy, and I see people speeding, and I know the difference between 30 and 40 miles an hour pretty well. And our speed limit is 30. And then at night, I mean, well, you get around 10 o'clock at night, and I've seen them doing a minimum of 50 and 60 miles an hour. So not everybody, but. And what bothers me about that is the golf carts that are out there. If someone's a little inhibited from drinking and their vision's not that good, the golf carts aren't that well lit, and they pile right through the back of one before it's over. So I'm just saying to you that I would like maybe ghost cars or something like that, just to make people think twice about it. We have a speeding problem on Main Street, and if you don't believe me, I suggest we ask the county to let us borrow their traffic counters to speed and traffic counts on Main Street to see if I can prove what I'm saying. But that's all I have to say. I'm just concerned about it.
Yes, sir. I'll get it.
And I know y'all are very lean, so I'm not casting any criticism. I'm just saying I'm concerned about it, and if I could let y'all know, if none of y'all live on Main Street, what it is like. And I've never made that comment before in 8 years, nor have I ever complained about it, but it's busy, and I'm concerned. Thank you. Thank you for your report. I'm finished now.
No, I just want to say thank you. I think Alderman Lassiter covered quite a bit there. So, but I know grant writing isn't the easiest, and the fact that you seem to get a really good hit rate. So appreciate the effort that you're putting in to save our village money. So
I've got a couple more I'm looking at.
So no, that's impressive. So no, thank you.
I would say, yeah, thank you. I would say that Main Street's not the only place where they speed. I said Main Street's not the only place where they speed. That's what you see, but I live in the village and at Mill Creek, and boy, I see them, both cars as well as, you know, golf carts, speed as well as go through stop signs frequently. And I've got a bit of a Evel Knievel bike gang that goes through our neighborhood regularly. I don't know what they're doing. They seem friendly enough, but I guess the question is I noticed that you've got a number of traffic stops listed here. Is there tools we have at our disposal besides stopping people that can help reinforce them to be better village participants, not speed as much, not roll the stop signs, remind them that golf carts are actually vehicles on the road, all those type of things that you know, I'm probably the old man in the street yelling at them when they go too fast. Some of them are contractors, and you know, I call them up and say, hey, you know, slow it down if you want to continue to do business here. A number of them are residents that live just up the street from me. And you go, what do you do when you live here? What do you for? You know, I'm curious from your perspective, is there things that we could do beyond the patrolling and the stopping folks that can help us push back the tide a little bit on the speeding that happens throughout the entire village?
Everything has a price on it, sir.
Yeah.
They do make traffic calming devices. Whether you want to put speed bumps in certain locations or you want to put other types of traffic calming devices, rumble strip, things like that. But again, honestly, the best way to address that is to actually stop the person.
Okay.
Because that way I get to actually have a conversation with you and I can educate you. And if I've already had a conversation with you and that education didn't work, then we can go a different direction.
Got it.
If that makes sense.
It does. I know we were using potholes for the longest time to be our speed inhibitors, but we're starting to fix some of those, so those are going to go away a little bit. But I appreciate that. I'm always reluctant to ask the police force to pull more people over and spend time doing that, because that means you're not patrolling, right, and doing the things that at least in my eyes are more precedent. But understood.
I can tell you that in response to your comment about speeding, I got a call from Chris Graham from the golf course the other day. I was speaking with him, and he said that he saw me drive by and it looked like I was leading the parade because I had about 4 cars behind me. And he goes, Chief, what were you doing? I said, I was doing 15 miles an hour in a 25-mile-an-hour zone. He's like, why were you doing that? I said, because everybody was impatient. Well, I was out there, I was the pace car. So with that being said, yeah, if you see me, I'm doing 15 miles an hour through town. If you get behind me, you probably should go around or something.
Well, I guess to a certain extent, I'm encouraging them to pull over more people and have conversations with them. And if they're a repeat conversationalist with you, then the next step is something more severe.
And like I said, the goal for traffic enforcement is nothing more than education. Mm-hmm. We can pull over and we can talk about your future driving habits.
Yeah. And
if that works, then we probably won't have that conversation again. But if that doesn't work, then we're not going to have that conversation again. We'll go a different route.
We have a lot of narrow roads. We have a lot of blind corners. We have roads that I think were made for 2 golf carts, not 2 SUVs. It makes it challenging at times. So appreciate your diligence on it.
Thanks, sir.
All right, Chief Fields, I just have a couple comments. One is, I like your strategy about being the pace car around town. That could actually slow a lot of people down, so that's pretty smart. I did notice the trends, so I would encourage you to continue to look at the trends on the calls that you're getting, and just make sure as you do your budgets that you've got a good idea what the expectations are in that way, and make sure you plan for that, because we do want to support making sure you have the right resources in your budget. And then the other thing, just I want to encourage you, I appreciate the report, want to encourage you to continue to go after any grant you can that makes sense. Obviously there may be some grants that don't make sense, but that is a good strategic move to help us find ways to fund what I think is going to be continuing growth in the community that you're going to need the resources to help in order to keep the community safe. So just encourage all of that for you, and don't have any further comments or questions. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll hear from Deanna on the Convention and Visitors Bureau monthly report.
Hey, good evening again, Mayor and Aldermen. This is going to be the May 2026 Convention and Visitor Bureau report. Starting off with our website metrics. Obviously, you can see March was pretty high, and then we have April and May who are about average. We have 81% new users in our May on the website. And obviously the activity is still very strong. When I look back at our numbers here, I can tell you that from December to current, we have had over 22,000 people searching our website. So to be able to share that with you as well. On our welcome groups, we've had two. We had the Good Vibe Literary Tribe. They came to the museum, a fun group who just liked history and wanted to do the tour of the museum. And then the Simmons family. This family came to Salado for the Midpoint, centrally located. They were from out of town, and they went to Austin and from Dallas, from other states. And it was just happened to be Salado was centrally located, as we all know. And they were looking for a place to be able to sit and visit with their family for the afternoon on Sunday afternoon. They went to Barrow and spent the afternoon there for a couple of hours. And then they were looking for another place to sit and play games and just visit with family. And the Holiday Inn opened their venue there for them so that they could sit and do that. And we had received a thank you letter. And in the thank you letter, just so that you know how we actually touch families, which just makes Salado the best part of it, is that during that time period, they had a family member who is suffering dementia. And that might have been one of the last times that the sister would have remembered her sibling. And so it was very nice to know that Salado was their destination and we were able to help them with that. Those are the stories that we like to hear. Obviously, we gave visitor bags to the tribe. We've been working on marketing, as you can see, through each day. I won't go through each one. We've just been with the new, oh, sorry, my stomach is growling, sorry. Okay, so with the new transition, we have been working on marketing and talking back to our, talking with our hotels, updating to make sure everybody is good where they align with. We've updated the Salado Jewel, also updated the Salado Cultural Arts on the website. We've been working on some itineraries for some potential guests coming to Salado down the road in the fall. We have a Veterans Association celebrating their 80th annual reunion from Fort Hood, and we are putting an itinerary together for them to come to Salado with some things to do. They will be staying at the Fort Hood area, coming to Salado for the afternoon, and we'll be giving them an itinerary of things to do here. And then we've been visiting with the Texas Society Association of Executives to discuss potential marketing ideas, opportunities, and our billboard is coming up for, we'll be renewing in July. However, that was the discussion last month, was to use the funds to pay for the Wayfinder signs so that you're not taking anything out of budget for that. And then as we look at budget and move forward, we can decide where else we want to put billboards and do what we want to do with our marketing. We have met with the new senior sales and events marketing manager at Stagecoach. And then we've also connected with another media artist. She creates some suitcases that she paints, and she's planning on having her visit here and bring a group here as well. And then of course we have our social media stuff that we're working on, and going to be enhancing that, implementing our interviews again, and starting that process over. And you can see the social media breakdown, and with that breakdown you can see also that we are also growing there. We've had over 64,000 views with a combination of Instagram and Facebook. And we've also increased from the last year of another 1,700 followers, and we continue to see that more every day as well. One of the fun posts that we did, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, is we have the troll on the green bridge that all the dogs like to bark at because they're terrified of. But what they don't know is there is something in those trees, and there is actually a fairy carved in one of the trees. I don't know if you know where it is or if you have seen it. We did a fun post with that, and we actually had somebody come and say, I couldn't find it. And I said, well, did you see all eyes on you? And anyway, but if you see it and you know where it is, we'd love to hear your side of the story on that too. And then we just had the third quarter jewel, and that's just a picture to show you that what has gone into the third quarter. And again, with the new transition and remaining focused on building new ideas, implementing new tourism initiations, and preparing materials for a successful tourism side. And that is what I have. If you have any other questions, just let me know.
I do.
Any questions for you?
I do. So first of all, I think that a lot of the communications materials are excellent.
Thank you.
The Jewel and others. I wasn't sure if you guys were the ones behind the maps now being available on Main Street that says you are here, you can go this direction or this direction.
Yes.
Is that you guys?
That was the kiosk.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jim and I were actually looking for places to put murals and places to put bathrooms. And when this was Sunday, I think we were doing this. Ran across two folks that were walking up and down the bridge. And we did an excellent job of instructing them that if they were hot, they can go down to the creek and put their feet in. They can get a beer or something from the baro, and the food at Chupacabra was pretty good.
Good.
But I was just wondering if we weren't there, would there be a proxy for us? I'm not sure if you guys have ever looked at sort of a QR code approach.
So we do have that, and so go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So because I mean, we were being the guides of up here if you want to do this, down here if you want to do that. But I would love to see QR codes throughout the city which says, if you're here, click on it. You want to see something historic? 500 feet this way. If you're hungry, you want to get a bite to eat? 200 feet this way. Got to use a bathroom over here, right? Because we were being good stewards, but Jim and I can't always be on the bridge waiting to talk to people.
So I can tell you
Jim
on
might
that.
be able to, but I can't.
Yeah, and so what we have been implementing and working with our, and that was also in our report last month too, and that we are doing with our businesses, is they are actually putting our QR code at their register, and even looking at putting it on their tables, on each table at the restaurants as well too. So that is what we are promoting, and that's what we'll be doing the next couple of months, is taking our rack card and thank yous to every business to let them know we're here with tourism and to remind them to update their business on our website, and just to see it make the connection, and then let them know that's available. We do believe, like what you were saying, we do believe our whole community, all of our businesses are our visitor center, and those are the people who are going to be there. We want them to be in their shops so they can spend, but their excitement also initiates the excitement like what you guys are doing as well, and that QR code in every business. And so far, we've had such a good turnout with businesses asking to put that in there to help promote tourism, and we're excited to see that.
I'm familiar with the ones in the restaurant and order that way, but the
No. This is our QR code for our website.
But are the ones you're talking about, would they be geographically based, saying that if I'm here, I hit the QR code and sort of tells me right around me what's available? Or would they pull up the entire Salado map? What I was at least envisioning was something that was a bit more directive.
Sure.
Because if you're on this end of town,
right,
you want to do something close to you potentially. Right. If you're at that end of town, right, you're trying to think what's around you that might be of interest. I wasn't sure if you're going down that path.
One of the tools that I am looking at will help with that, and that is something that we'll be asking for in our budget.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to see that. That's
yes, it's a great idea.
Anyone else on the board have questions for you?
Yeah.
Very good report.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Thanks. You're welcome. Thank y'all.
Okay, now we will move to item 4 on the agenda, discussion, consideration, and possible action. First item, A, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding the selection of an audit firm to provide annual audit and related accounting services for the Village of Salado through the RFP process. So before we take a motion on moving forward, I guess I would turn to John, maybe just to see if there's any other comments you want to make from the discussion from the workshop.
I I have nothing further other than what the questions that were discussed during the work session. If the board so would like me to come back and would like to table this, and I can come back with information on if we had checked references of the auditing firm, or if we have not, we will do that if you'd like. As I said during the work session, a delay of 2 weeks is not going to cause a problem, any harm in doing that.
So, anybody else want to make a comment from the Board of Aldermen? Okay, hearing none, I would open up then and accept a motion on what action we want to take regarding the audit firm.
I'll make a motion that administrator goes back and does a little more due diligence over the next 2 weeks.
Can't hear you.
I'll make the motion that our city administrator goes back and does a little more due diligence on some references. We can table this till next Alderman meeting.
Okay, so we have a motion to table the decision to the next Alderman meeting to give us time to go back and check references and other due diligence that might be necessary, and then bring it back at the July 2nd, John?
That's correct.
July 2nd meeting.
Second.
Any other comments? Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Same sign for opposition. Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay, item B, discussion, consideration, and possible action to approve the task order from MRB concerning the wastewater capacity calculations. Any comments from the alderman at this point?
I do, Mayor.
Okay, go ahead.
First of all, earlier, I think I may have accidentally referred to Mrs. Linda Reynolds as her sister, Mrs. Walsh, and if I did do that, then I owe her an apology. She's left, so hopefully she'll see or hear about this later. To the point of item 4B, I did make a comment 2 weeks ago that I stand behind, that we need more when it comes to doing business with developers. That doesn't mean that we must do business with developers, to be totally clear. Also, Southern Oaks has been on someone's desk at the Village of Salado for plus 3 years. That's not normal. This isn't being rushed. This is just finally being worked on. Big difference. I want to make that clear. And that is the only comments I have on that one.
Any other comments?
I've got.
Like to agree publicly with what Alan said. I don't appreciate the fact that it's suggested that we're up here hasting any development through this. There are more people up here who know things about development than we've had in a long time up here. So don't have all the answers, make mistakes, but I tell you what, it'll get a better scrubbing now than it sure has in the past, and you can count on that. So I objected to that statement. I don't think it was fair, and I just needed to speak about it as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alderman Dunch, any other comments?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
I do have one.
Alderman Van Cura?
Yeah, in terms of MRB, right, I think we had a very light proposal by them as to, doing analysis. I think we had 2 items that we requested from them. One is if they can get their engineer back with us and explain if and how changes in processing impact capacity. They have to do a little bit of work on that. And the other one was to provide an example of reports or analysis on this capacity analysis they've done in the past. It gives a better sense of the data modeling that will be done. I'd like to have answers to both those questions before we decide to move forward with a yay or nay on hiring them as a an engineering firm to do capacity analysis. I don't think we're going to find anything surprising in either of those two. It's just more of a bit more due diligence to understand what we should be expecting to see and make sure that they also have the capacity and capability to incorporate if we're going to make changes to our stringent requirements, if that's going to impact their analysis as well. I think they took both of those items away as well as action items. Is that clear?
Okay. Do you want to make that as a formal motion to be voted on?
Yeah, so let's my motion would be that we not take a vote on MRB for yea or nay today, but look for them to answer these two questions. One is to provide an example of the capacity analysis they've done, so we're aware of what they'll do, as well as answer the technical question of how do they deal with changes in processing required because of more stringent requirements as they do the capacity analysis.
Would you be open to putting a time limit on that request for the motion?
I think both of these, it sounded like speaking, you're listening to Solomon, these are both quick items for them to work. You know, if they've done this work before, they should be able to provide a capacity analysis report to us within a number of business days. The other one sounded like a technical question to the processing engineer. He's a civil engineer. So I would expect that, you know, by the end of next week, they should be able to fulfill both of those and provide them to us.
So that the your motion then would table the vote until the next Alderman meeting?
July
Is that
2nd.
fair?
I think we should be in a position to vote then, yeah. Okay. And if I understand correctly from city manager here, this still fits within the time frame that we're okay if we move out 2 weeks to make a yes or no decision on the MRB.
Well,
I understand there's a desire to move quickly so that we get the analysis started. I just want to make sure that when we launch them, we're a bit better informed as to what they're going to be returning to us as their deliverable.
Yeah.
you want to go ahead and comment?
No, we'll follow up with, I've already talked to Solomon. I'll be talking to him next week anyway, but so we'll add this in those two items, which I think I already have written down anyway.
Yep.
Yeah, and we'll bring it back on July 2nd. It will delay the start into the questions that were asked of him of the timeline. We're delaying the start of that for 2 weeks. That's the impact of it. So getting the results then back for 2 weeks further out, but we'll get it done, or they will get it done. So.
Just a procedural question. I think we have a session next week, don't we? Which is
that agenda's already been posted though, so we're not able to add it to that agenda.
Thank you.
At this point.
Okay, so we have a motion to delay approval until the next Board of Aldermen meeting on July 2nd while these questions get answered by them, MRB. So I will ask for a second to that motion.
Board discussion.
If we do not have a second, I believe that tables that motion.
No formal action has to be. It will come back on July 2nd whether you table this or not, because unless you would otherwise approve it, we'll bring it back.
Just one discussion, because one of the questions was asked, which I was a little surprised he couldn't answer and come up with one customer that they had done this report for. So I can't, unless it was just on the spot, but is this something that's truly in their wheelhouse that they know how to do, and when it comes to the only thing that went during the workshop that concerned me was you didn't have a straight answer, right? Like, yeah, I've done this for this village and this town, right off the bat. So
I understand that because in my conversation 2 weeks ago when I first met Solomon, I was kind of going through an orientation of all the services they provide the city. I asked a similar question and he was not able to answer it. But as he explained, he is not a water
civil
engineer.
Yeah, it's not necessary. So he's got to check with his wheelhouse.
Right,
and that makes sense.
And as he said, the person that would have otherwise been here tonight with him their wastewater engineer is out on medical leave, but is, and so that, they do have the capacity from my understanding, but the person that is that, I guess the key person in this is out right now and unable to be here, so otherwise I think if she was here, that question would have been answered. Probably, actually, probably both those questions,
I have a
Alderman Van Cruz's questions probably would have been answered.
There's someone sitting up here that knows how to analyze whatever answer they give you and use that to decipher whether or not they're qualified to do what we're asking them to do. I can't do that. I don't think the ask is that great. It's a math problem, gentlemen.
Well, but we're looking to hire a firm to do a capacity analysis for 25 years, and they've given us no examples of how they've done it in the past. So why would we be comfortable that they're going to provide us an answer that is worthwhile?
That's fair. I'm not in argument with your comment. It's just there are pros and cons to every action that we make up here.
Yeah. So could I look at an analysis capacity report and with some engineering insight look at that and say, yep, I think I understand that they have the flexibility to model different capacity requirements based on different inputs? Yes, I could. But not having anything provided to us that said, here's an example of our work.
Well, I can certainly
it's hard to say, yes, we should hire this firm.
Okay.
I can, at this point, obviously, we're not going to vote on that motion, but we can vote on another motion if someone wants to make an alternative motion.
It doesn't hurt. We're going to end up at the same place, whether we table it or there's no vote, correct?
That's correct.
Well, I'll just formally re-ask the prior motion. Just table it for consideration and action at the July 2nd meeting. Is there?
So you want to second the motion?
If it's still on the floor, if it's not, I'll restate it again and see if there's a second.
Okay. Yeah, because there wasn't a second to Jeff's motion, so I guess we probably have to restate it. So.
Is that correct?
Yeah, I'll second your comment there. Okay. No issue. Basically, we've got some open questions. We're going to table it for now. I hope that they're going to answer these two open questions, and we'll be able to have the end of the conversation in 2 weeks.
Yeah. My only caveat is that when they come back in 2 weeks, to make sure that engineer is here.
I think she will be if she's back from medical leave. Yeah. That would be the only thing that would keep her from being able to do that.
And there's nothing that stops them from providing an example of their work before then. It doesn't have to be 2 weeks from now that they show up with a report. It would sure be nice within about 24 hours that they gave us a report and said, here's some examples of how we've done this before, and here's what the report looked like.
And I may not know it, but Grok certainly knows how to analyze that for me, so I can, yeah. I think it would be benefit to get that report.
We also have access to water experts within the village who might be a nice person to share such a report with and say, do you think this is good work, it's comprehensive, or do you think this is the type of thing that, quite frankly, Grok could have done, and why we're paying them $57,000 to do this?
Then why don't we just use AI to do it instead of paying them that money?
It's a math problem.
They're making an argument that they could just use AI and get this done.
I don't think we were. I think we were basically saying that,
No, I would suggest taking their feedback and running it through an analysis through AI of other comparisons. Yes, you could use AI. Now, I am not a subject matter expert and wouldn't even try to begin to be. So.
I understand the desire to move quickly with this, and I'm for that. I just think it's unusual that someone made a proposal to us that was 4 pages long, that talked about what they're going to do, provided no examples of their work. I think that's unusual. For an engineering type of analysis or modeling analysis, I would start with something about yay thick to begin with and say, here's the 12 times I've done this before, and here's how we're going to apply it to you, as opposed to give me a quote for some high-level discussions that they want to have. It's unusual.
I'm not here to defend MRB by any means, but what you're asking for, in effect, is a proposal on the work, and we already have a contract with them. This was just a task order. That's why they didn't give us that other information on other experience in doing it. We can clearly ask them. That's not an issue. And again, I'm not defending them, but I think that I just want to explain that's why this was a task order, not a proposal, so they wouldn't have that information.
Mayor, I think
Yes.
your board is just uncomfortable with this decision tonight. So what is there a motion on the table, and do you need a second?
Yeah, there was a motion on the table.
And has that been seconded, Mr. Ventura?
By Jeff, so we can vote on that proposal. Okay? So if the discussion is over, we will go ahead and vote on the motion made by Mr. Lassiter to table the approval of this, of the work order from MRB until the July 2nd meeting. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion passes. Thank you. Okay. Okay, so now we'll move on to item C, discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding the final plot of Zabranic property, Thomas Arnold Road, a subdivision in the ETJ of the Village of Salado, Bell County, being a 12.785 acre tract of L located in the H.W. Herds Survey, abstract number 398, Bell County, Texas. Said 12.785 acre tract being all of that certain 12.785 acre tract of land recorded in the document number 20230444763, official public records, Bell County. So I will ask the alderman if there are any further discussions on the ETJ item here, and I'll start with Alderman Sandor.
No discussion from me, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Lassiter?
Mayor, I think we've already discussed this in the workshop, and I have no further questions.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Dunch?
No, my only question is, if we deny this, does it really matter? We spent a lot of time talking about this, but do we really have any jurisdiction over this, really?
Yes, we do, because it's in our jurisdiction, it's within the city's ETJ. If it's not approved and it complies, which it's been reviewed and complies with all of the city's plotting requirements, and it's denied, we could open ourselves up to potential legal action.
So, yes, it meets all the requirements. Then I have no other question.
Correct. Gina?
I have no other question.
I don't have any more questions. Thank you.
Okay. So I will entertain a motion to approve the property.
I'll make the motion to approve agenda item 4C as written.
Have a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion passes. Okay, that takes us to item 5. Do we need an executive session?
We do not. There is no new information to be discussed.
All right, thank you. Then the item 7, which is our last item of the evening. Discussion, consideration, and possible action since we had no executive session. The question is, do we have any action to take on the lawsuit with Hofstraat Brewing Company?
No.
Mayor, I move to adjourn.
One moment before you adjourn, if I could ask for that motion to be withdrawn, and ask for you to come back to item 2A, the two items that were pulled off from the consent agenda.
3 and 4.
3 and 4. The board does need to take action on accepting each of those monthly reports.
Yeah, good call.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, yeah. So I'll entertain a motion to accept the police department monthly report.
I move to accept items 2A, 3, and 4 as reported as written.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion passes. And now we have Alderman Sandor's motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn, Mayor.
Yeah, sorry.
You're good.
Okay.
Second.
We are
You didn't
adjourned.
need one, but fine.
Anybody opposed?